Over 245,000 children in New Zealand live in poverty. They sleep in overcrowded conditions. They live in houses that are cold, where there's water running down the walls. They're frequently hungry. They're often cold. They have poor educational outcomes, poor health outcomes, and really poor qualities of life. We actually know a reasonable amount about the numbers of children living in poverty. We understand that statistically, the odds of having a happy and fulfilled life are fairly low. In the statistics we see in the justice system, they appear. In the unemployment numbers, they will appear. And in the poor health outcomes, they will appear. We know a lot about children living in poverty. What we don't know as much about is of their families. And what we do know about, we are often very, very judgmental towards them. For the last 22 years, I have run a social service agency that works with the most marginalised people in New Zealand. And I have seen over the last 22 years the change in the number of people who are living in poverty and the degree of poverty that they live in. 22 years ago, people would come for a food parcel once or twice a year because things were tough. The washing machine broke down, there was a death in the family, something had happened. In the last 5 years, I've seen people turning up week after week after week looking for food. Entrenched and long-term poverty. And at the same time, as I see these mainly women coming to beg from charities for food, I hear the rhetoric that goes on in the community. And people, in fact, ring me up, and they say, "Why are you feeding those lazy people? They're overweight. You can see that they're fat. So why don't you give a diet rather than a food parcel?" They're on their cell phones outside. If they can afford cell phones, why don't they put that money towards food for their children? They're standing around smoking. Why don't they go out and get a job and just lift themselves out of poverty? They're lazy, they're useless, they don't try, they're not making any attempt. So whilst we have absolute sympathy for children living in poverty, we have very, very little tolerance for their parents. So I started to think about this, that we know a lot about what happens while people are living in poverty, and we know about the effects. What we don't understand is what stops people from moving out of poverty. A few years ago, I did a very quick survey on some of our families, and we asked them what stopped them from going to the doctor. Why didn't they take their children to the doctor? And I had assumed, like most of you will probably assume, that they had debt and they couldn't afford to go to the doctor. What I found out was most of them wouldn't go to the doctor because they had been treated badly by the receptionist. And I hear that little ripple that gives you, I know what receptions are like at doctors. Mine scares me. If you're poor and you can't afford to go and your children's got runny nose and you look like you're really not the standard that they're used to having there, then actually you're rejected before you even get in the door. So what stops them? What stops them going to the doctor? Not money, but shame and the way that they are treated. So that made me think. I needed to start thinking about, were my assumptions right? Would education be the answer? Are people lazy? Do they just not get a job? We needed to start thinking about what stops people moving out and asking the experts to tell us the answers to those questions. Now, often we think that experts are the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Social Development because they keep all the statistics, of course, so they know all of this. But what we have failed to do is ask the very experts that live their lives day in, day out in poverty. The Family 100 project that we set up was just that, 100 families. And the academics that I invited to join me on this project said, you can't do 100. Let's talk to 6 families, and in 5 weeks we can have something that we can put out in an academic paper. 100 people, too many. I'd picked 100 because statistically it was really easy. I'm simple, really. And I thought we should talk to them for a year, because if you really want to find out what's going on, you need to have a long conversation with people. And so we started the Family 100 project, 3 universities, 100 families, I convinced the academics, obviously, 12 months, and a long conversation with the families. We did things differently, because actually what we have found with academic research quite often, you have forms to fill in, and we already prescribe and think about what it's all going to be like. We want everybody to fit in to where we sit. And that doesn't really always work. So the first thing we asked our families to do was to draw a picture of their family. And we have an assumption, even though we know it's not true, all of us, of a nuclear family, mum, dad, and 2 kids. And we draw it like that. And if we actually push our thoughts a little bit more, we might actually come up with a separation and step-parenting. So mum, dad, ex-partners, a little bit of more confusion, and what we call a genogram that's at the bottom. I sometimes get people to draw mine, and I'm going to get you to draw mine in your head. I am an only child. No, that's easy, isn't it? Mum, dad, only child, right? I am the youngest of 5. Okay, you get that? My mother had numerous partners and 2 children. And my father's wife died, and he had 2 children. And they got together and produced the best piece of work. But what is more confusing is that my mother and father are brother and sister-in-law, and so all my brothers and sisters are cousins by marriage. And when somebody in our family said we're going to see our auntie, I would go, is it mine? No. And so the families that we see when they came in, we asked all of them to draw their pictures. And their families look more like this. Right? It's a bit like mine too. But what was more important is that we saw that children move between families all of the time. And don't try and read that too much. It's more about showing the complexity of what a family looks like. But children move. And in our everyday forms, we may have something for a parent, and maybe even a co-parent, and a step-parent, but not an auntie of the sister of the brother who's looking after the child because the father's in prison. You try putting that on a form. And what we discovered was that children in poor families move enormously. They spend a day sometimes at an auntie's, a week, a month, 6 months. They go to a sister's, brother's. They move all over the place. Does money move with them? No. So when we provide a benefit for a family, it doesn't actually take into account that that family might be 6 children this week, 9 children the following week, and 3 children the following month. The money follows the adults and not the children. Children have no value often in families. And we don't have a system that actually allows, one, for us to even map families, let alone thinking about how we can actually make sure that children get money attached to them. The second thing we do is we use data in the wrong way. We pick up the wrong information. You will hear all the time that if we raise people's incomes, everything will be okay. If people are on a higher income, their lives will be okay. And that may be for a lot of people who start their lives without debt and have some assets. But for the families we worked with, their lives are slightly different. This is called an echo map of debt. And Amelia, in the middle of that, is like 100 of the others that we talked to. When Amelia was 18, she met the love of her life, and she got pregnant. And he said, "Amelia, my mother needs a new car, but she's got no credit rating. So I'm wondering if you'll sign the loan form." And Amelia trusted him, and she signed the loan form, and the next loan form, and the next loan form, and the next loan form. And 3 years later, he was gone. The mother-in-law was gone, the car was gone, the washing machine's gone, and Amelia's left with 3 children, all of their debts, and no way of actually repaying any of it. Most of Amelia's loans are interest rates of 171 to 700% interest. Okay? And so some of you are sitting there thinking, why did she sign this? Why did she sign it without realizing what she was doing? Put your hand up if you're on Facebook. Anybody on Facebook? Oh, look, here we go, all of you. Put them down. Now put your hand up if you've read the terms and conditions. Wow. Okay? How many of you have read the terms and conditions for your cell phone? Oh, I usually find one somewhere. I know it takes 36 hours to read them. But when we judge Amelia and the hundreds of other women who go and get debt like this, let us remember that we sign things all the time without understanding what it means. But also to understand that Amelia has never been able to go to a bank like you and I have. That Amelia has never been able to access loan money at a rate of 4 or 5 or 10%. 171 to 700% interest. So then Amelia is in so much debt, and you can actually just imagine, it won't matter at this point how much income you give Amelia. Her loans are huge, and the interest that she's paying on it, she will never get out of. She hasn't got enough money coming in to pay for food, so she needs to go to food banks. She hasn't got enough money to pay off her debts, so she spends most of her life avoiding the debt collectors. And the only way that she can get nappies for her child is to go into the trucks that come around. And they don't charge interest, because they've been snapped for that. So they just put their prices up by 9 or 10 times. So a packet of nappies that she could buy in the supermarket for $16, she'll pay $80 for. And she has no choice. She has nowhere to go, and she's really stuck. What is our solution for Amelia and hundreds of other like her? We do budgeting. And actually we have a new one lately. And we don't just do that, we talk about financial literacy, so you can know when you're stuffed. Doesn't make any difference. We need to start thinking about not cutting down the trucks or looking at the lenders, because every time we do that, they pop up somewhere else because Amelia's got no choice. What we need to do is think about debt consolidation programs, of actually bringing all this debt into one place, of helping her to have a low interest rate over a long period, when actually then financial literacy and budgeting will make some sense to her. But for the hundreds of families that we see through the mission, the amount of debt compared to the amount of income is insurmountable. The next thing we looked at was, so where do people go? What do they do? What agencies help? And so we started with, once again, mapping. I'm quite keen on this mapping thing, you can tell that. Mapping where families go. And the reason actually is, the great thing about this is families did these maps themselves. They leapt up, they put them on the whiteboard, they leapt out, they took them home, they thought about them, they came back again. They were research participants, not poor people. And they were so excited about what they were finding in their lives. So we did a map on where do people go? What agencies do they go to? So we took a typical family of 4, because we like working with nuclear families. And we asked them what agencies they've been involved with. So this is a family who are involved in a number of social service agencies and health agencies. So this is the health agencies they're involved with, the social service agencies that they're involved in, the justice agencies that they are involved in, the not-for-profit agencies that they are involved in, the debt collection agencies that they're involved with, and the churches. Oh, I think I forgot to tell you, this is in 2 weeks. Okay? So this is a fairly average trawl for a family living in poverty every 2 weeks. And every time they go out, they have to tell their story, time and time and time again. And they have to tell the story that suits the agency. We wouldn't give them a food parcel unless there was some crisis. So let's invent a crisis. Work and income won't give them something unless they've got the right reason. They can't get a house unless they actually meet the criteria for the house. So you can't say you've got extra people living in the house. I also find it really intriguing that people say they should get a job. And I wonder if they haven't already got one. Yeah. And that when they do get a job, they're underpaid. They have to go out late at night. And strangely enough, we discovered that there was daycare, but no night care. So living in poverty is difficult. It's exhausting. 60% of our families' time is spent on seeking food. Okay? 60% of their time. What stops people moving out of poverty? We charge them more for everything. They pay more for power, 60% more for power if you've got glowbug on your house. More for power, more for an interest. We charge them more for rent. We make it more difficult to live close to where they work. They struggle with childcare. Everything that they do is almost keeping them where they're going. They know the answer is education, but in terms of getting an education, they do high-priced courses that raises their debt that often doesn't result in getting work at all. The people that we see are materially poor. They're digitally poor because they can't, like you, have an app to get their housing benefit. They don't have an app for their bank. Their lives are not made simple. They're data rich, but we are very, very limited on our understanding of what it is like to be poor, to be marginalised, to wake up every morning worrying about whether you're going to put food on the table. If anything today I would want to change is to change people's attitudes to those families who live in poverty in New Zealand. Thank you.